Hello, what's going on, guys? Grab my microphone, as I always forget to bring it over. Welcome to the stream. Gonna be hanging out, working on our Froggy Boy some more. And I guess we can go ahead and get started right away. The only thing I want to tell you about real quick is go check out Danny Cruz. Go check out their artwork. This is the concept that I'm working off of. And definitely go check out her concept art. She's got a ton of cool stuff, ton of different concepts. I'm actually referencing this for a specific article of clothing that she's incorporated on here. This design is much different from our finished design that she has here, though. Clearly much different. But yeah, if you guys got any questions, anything that you think I might be able to help you out with, throw it up in the chat, and I will do my best to answer. Other than that, though, there's some links down in the description to some tutorials, some higher quality paid tutorials if that's something you're interested in. And let's go ahead and get started. I am working on a lot of different smaller parts right now. In particular, before I jumped on stream, I was looking at the hands. I had just started to kind of tweak those and modify those a little bit more to match our character. And if you were in our last stream, then you know this hand is looking quite a bit different. I think there are still quite a few changes that need to happen to both of these hands, though, and a lot of the articles of clothing. There's some changes I want to make to the head. Maybe kind of like squash the lower part of the head down a little bit there. Just trying to get that closer. Obviously, we got some issues with our hat and how that's working, so we got to tweak that too. But yeah, let's just dive in, and I'm gonna continue what I was doing in our last stream. So working on our hands, I'm just trying to bend all these fingers individually and start getting them into pose. I'm using polygroups right now. You can see that my polygroups are kind of messing up. It's because I have live boolean on. If you have live boolean on, like I did there, I was using that to create that slit in the eye that you could see. But if you have live boolean turned on, it's going to mess up your polygroups when you have solo mode turned off. It's a little frustrating to work with, so just temporarily what I'm going to do is kind of turn that off and tweak these individually using the polygroups that I have available. So let's go ahead and grab our transpose tool and start to rotate some of these into position. And probably a little bit of move too. And I was thinking that I might kind of separate these to make them easier to tweak and play with from there. Something that I do quite often. But we'll kind of just start messing up our geometry. You can see how just that simple kind of move there, it starts to kind of mess this up at the higher subdivs. It's not a huge problem right now, but we obviously will need to clean that up as we get to a more finished state. Hello, what's going on, Vino? Nicely done, thank you, appreciate it. Welcome to the stream, dude. Alright, let's start rotating this last finger here. Choose our rotation point and get tweaking. So with my little knuckle there, that first knuckle on our digit, I don't have enough polygons at that subdivision level. Now I could step up once, but what I prefer to do is just make that really simple move on the low poly figure, and then I can step up from there and then kind of resculpt some stuff that's starting to screw up. Most of my fingers kind of on that second digit there, that final digit I guess, the third, it's got a little bit of some like curve in. It starts to like swoop. So I'm gonna see if I can capture some of that. Probably just with my move brush, and probably really simple. This is what I was doing for, let's look at my other hand real quick. For over here, just kind of playing with this. To make it look more like frog digits. So just kind of getting a little bit of curve and a little bit of inflate on the tips of the fingers. And I'll show you how I did that. want to hide this finger. Polygroups are great on fingers. It makes it so much easier to work with. The problem is fingers are just kind of terrible to work with in general, so it just takes time. Trying to find that pose that you're looking for. Let's hide this one and mask off that. I think I need to scale my hands down in size, both of them actually, and then actually lengthen some of my fingers. Down here, I've been thinking about this and how I want to go about this. This one's still pretty rough. If you look at the palm, I was just kind of sculpting on this, and you can see how the geometry is a little messed up. So kind of just trying to add some additional volume in here to the palm of the hand so that it's not quite so flat through there. And then after I remesh some of this, that'll all blend out and it won't even matter. But yeah, just coming through here, cleaning up some of this junk, and let's look at possibly scaling this down. Just using my transpose scale. I really don't want to go too crazy there on the change. Take it one step at a time, and then go over to my other hand and try to do the same thing. And there are a lot of things that need to change in this to get it more accurate to the concept. I was mentioning the head earlier, some stuff that needs to change in there. But it's just a matter of kind of slowly going through one piece at a time and getting it to the next level, the next stage, before you move on to something else. I don't want to completely finish my head and then leave everything else, 5 steps back where they should be currently. I want to try to get things to the next level congruently, all at the same time. Let's look at scaling this one down a little bit. I'm going to scale from here. And you can see we're getting a little bit of an error there. And that's actually because if I mask this off, you can see that those fingers are still masked. And it wasn't showing us that they were masked. If you're experiencing some weird stuff that's happening and you can't figure out what's going on, just try to mask something real quick and see if that shows it. Sometimes your mask won't be visible. There's actually a setting that you can turn on that will not show like a darker version of the polys for when it is masked. So just kind of be aware that that is a possibility. So just shrink that down just a bit and possibly realign my hand and rotate some stuff to get it in a better place. For the most part though, that scale didn't screw us up too much. You can see there, we got a little bit of a floaty arm, so let's probably give this dude an elbow to work off of. So I'm just going to mask, drop my transpose tool there, grow that out. A little bit of some stretch, it's not a big deal. And figure out where we need to put this elbow. Let's start with this, and then go from there. Turn off transparency. Really, we're not going to need much of the upper arm there. What would be his upper arm, because it's going to be hidden in this sleeve. Amazing how it is respecting the original concept. I mean, that's the whole point, isn't it? And knitting says heart, heart. Well, thank you. Thank you for the hearts. Let's look at just how this is going to be positioned in here. Maybe rotate around. The wrist point here a little bit. Just to get that a little bit more in line with where I have this sleeve currently. And you know, none of this is permanent. So if I change one thing and it's not working in one area, I can always come back and start to tweak other areas. Getting a really strong shadow in there, don't want that. Try to clean that up some. And I'll probably do something more with the inside of these sleeves. I haven't really given much attention to them at all, so we're definitely going to need to do something more with these eventually. Alright, see how some of this stuff is kind of lining up here. Kind of want to shrink this a little bit now, our wand. And I want to get a point down here to select. So I'm going to scale from that center point there, just so it stays within my hand a little bit better, or within our froggy's hand a little bit better. And let's see. In terms of position, I think I could pull that down a little bit. It can be really tough to kind of pose your hand and try to place something in it at the same time. I'm just kind of going back and forth right now, trying to find a happy medium as I get closer to what the final pose of the hand is going to look like. Try to mask that a little bit more efficiently. More effectively, I should say. I don't think I even had the wand sculpted on our last stream, so that is something new. The way I sculpted that was exactly the same how I sculpted the little twig up here with the leaves, which I believe was in our last stream. I can't really remember off the top of my head, but if that's something that you're interested in, you can check out that process video. I plan on making a little bit of a time lapse after I'm done with all this for our froggy boy here. And I want to start to tweak the size of my hand here a little bit. Let's just use a selection tool just to make this a little bit easier so I can see exactly what I'm selecting. Ooh, excuse me. All right. Starting to try to get this little bit of a curve coming through here. I'm using a giant move brush so that I grab all of that. It's got some long fingies. frog hands and feet are actually pretty cool. I think this is like supposed to be a some kind of tree frog. That's what it looks like to me, at least. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe they have one digit that is much longer than the others. We can kind of look at some references later if we want to get an idea of how we want to represent these hands a little bit better. But for now, I think we're fine just doing this. Just kind of going off of our concept and making sure that things work, of course, in 3D as well. Add a little bit more bend here and there. You gotta break it before you can fix it. Sometimes. We also have a lot of changes we gotta make to our hat. And I think I just want to kind of squash it in. Kind of want to take a look at some stuff here in T-pose. So let's do that before we do some more stuff with our hand. This hand is like way higher up as well. The thing I wanted to do was try to shift the entire character's body over. I kind of want to look at that too. So really quick here. Oops. Select all this junk. All that. Mask it. Just kind of move it all over at once, just ever so slightly. And possibly get a slight rotate in here. Trying to make it more possible to get our hand a little bit higher. I think squashing down the head will also achieve that effect a little bit. I can't actually do that right now though because I haven't I don't have my pupils in there. Trying to get a little bit of rotate in there. Trying to make this work from every angle. Never an easy thing. I do have perspective on right now. Typically during posing I'll keep it on more often than not. I will turn it off though if I'm trying to do something from an orthographic view. Bino asks, do you think it's possible to make a 3D 3D based on 2D concept? So is it always possible to translate something that is 2D into 3D? And the answer is no. No, it's not always possible. In general, I think it's possible, but there are sometimes things that are just simply not possible in 3 dimensions. For instance, if you take a look at the hat here, and this scarf and this wand, the interactions between those things with the wand and the scarf flowing up and in front of where the hat will be, we're going to have to squash the hat just a ton and really move it back away from the character if we want those things to happen. And sometimes there are other stuff that just simply doesn't translate to 3D, and you have to make sacrifices and find out what works best. So not always, but I think in general, I would say that, you know, you can take the idea of something and translate it to 3D and find out what's appealing about that thing, and also translate that to 3D. Sometimes though, you know, it's just simply not possible. And I shouldn't even say sometimes, I should actually say a lot of the time. Just because if you're a 2D artist, you're not exactly, you know, working in perfect 3 dimensions, so there's always going to be some kind of like little thing that just doesn't work. You know, whatever that is. Could be something really small. I think this isn't that big of a deal. I think that's pretty small. It could be a perspective issue. A lot of the time it is a perspective issue. But I don't know, there's just a lot of possibilities. It just kind of depends. So I'm really just kind of trying to give this a little bit of squish. Squish it in. And possibly a little bit of rotation back, like so. A little bit of rotation this way. And this will kind of ruin my hard surface thing. I will fix that after we jump out of T-pose though. So you can kind of see the changes that I've had to make there. So now I might be able to pull my scarf up and like really get that in a nice place to really make this work. But you know, we had to do a lot of squishing and moving there to get that hat to really work the way we want. Plus, it's still not anywhere near as wide as what's represented here. So if I really want to make this work, I'm gonna have to, you know, we're gonna have to make some changes. Some large changes. And you know, when I do this, it stretches everything. For the most part, our leaves and stick will be okay. The stars that I have on here, I applied those as separate geometry. I also poly painted the stars. I wasn't sure what I wanted to go with, and I still am not positive what I'm gonna finish with. But I'll come back and tweak those more later. So you can see we're really deforming our hat quite a bit now. It's not the end of the world, but I don't want to break it so much that it looks like a hat from the front view and it looks accurate to our concept, but it doesn't look accurate to anything from any other view. You have to make it work in every view. And it's still not wide enough, not large enough. I don't know if we can get this to be the exact, you know, we're only working off of one view though, so, you know, some areas are going to have to make sacrifices for specific things. And this just might be one of those areas. And you can see exactly what I was talking about when I said trying to get this scarf to flow in front of the hat. That's why I hadn't really brought the scale up quite yet. Based on the shadows, you know, I'm just trying to interpret this as best as I can. Whoops. Trying to be careful here with some of my selections. Trying to retain that nice S-curve that we worked really hard to build up. It's pretty close to what I was aiming for there in general. Starting to get a little bit narrow up here too. I failed on a cartoon character from Regular Show. I think Regular Show is, I think you're talking about Mordecai and Rigby, Cartoon Network Regular Show. I've not seen that in quite a long time, but yes, that show's pretty funny. I'm not sure what you mean by failed on a character. There's always time to go back and try again and make new changes. Always time to revisit a piece. Right? Artwork's never finished, only abandoned. There's always more you can do. This arm. This arm. This is the one that's giving me the most trouble. Obviously, it's the harder, more difficult pose out of the two. Trying to make all that stuff work in and around it. Once I get some more subdivs out of T-pose here, this will we'll be able to get a nicer curve through there too. Can maybe shift some of that in there. The way this is flowing, like if you look at that curve there, it's like going into the scarf, so that's kind of one of those examples where, you know, something just doesn't make sense in 2D. You know, I think concept-wise that curve looks nicer, but it's just not, you know, I can't have the sleeve going through the scarf. That doesn't make any sense, so I have to recognize that and make that decision and try to correct that. Tried to do Muscle Man. Oh man. Oh man, Muscle Man. Muscle Man's fun. It's kind of ugly, but that'd be a fun character to sculpt. Wasn't happy with the hair. Yeah, hair can definitely be a difficult thing to make look good. But with enough time, you know, anything's possible. Let's hop on out of T-pose just so we can see how our changes are looking here. Some stuff on the hat we can kind of squash and stretch and fix. And let's change our song. This is ZBrush and Chill. That was like extra chill. So let's take a fine gander at our hat. See how some of these changes translated. So some stuff got misaligned a little bit here and there. I think for the most part, some very slight tweaks to some of our leaves will be fine. And these were probably already issues that just needed to take place here. And in the back, those look okay for the most part. There's definitely some squashing that happened. This is the main thing I was concerned about. So definitely some changes there. I'm just gonna undo back to before the T-pose changes happened, and then just manually replace it back where I need it to go, and then probably just scale it up a little bit, it looks like. And make sure that everything's looking good. I'm just gonna have to move this manually, I think, a little bit. Alright. I also want to separate these so that I can add some subdivisions to our ring. Rotate that boy. We're at 21 million on this character, so when I have everything kind of visible at once, things can get a little bit laggy. Pretty much only because I'm streaming at the same time. I'm not normally experiencing hardly any lag. ZBrush pretty much just runs off of your RAM, and then on occasion it uses your processor for a few different actions. Dynamesh Z-Remesher, the new Sculptress Pro mode, and a couple other things, but you know, for the most part, it'll run off your processor at a very low percentage, and then just hog all your RAM, depending on how many polys you got going on. So I wanted to split that off. I'll show you why. So split hidden, and I just want to subdivide that and have that star be solid. Could even be a little bit larger. Let's look at making it a little bit bigger. And just sliding down. Dean, what is going on, my man? Welcome back. We are making lots of changes tonight. Lots of little things. And maybe some big things as well. Posing and all that. Vlad says, that's amazing. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, dude. You should tell the concept artist. Danny what? Danny Cruz. Go check them out on ArtStation. Tell them how amazing their concept is. I'm just translating it to 3D. So there are some things I want to do with the face, like I mentioned. The hand is still, you know, in need of some love. We still gotta do our clothing additions. I'm pretty happy with the major shapes, though, that we're seeing in our sleeves. Some secondary forms, though, will become necessary. Not quite yet, though. We can maybe start to, like, work them in. I kind of also mentioned that I wanted to figure out this. I'll probably just soften this transition in here, so it kind of ends fades into nothing in here. It's the same thing that I plan on doing with up under the cloak there, because currently he doesn't have a body. He's just a floaty boy, so he needs something in there if he was ever to be taken to production, you know. Can't have no hollows. Watertight. That's the name of the game. And I kind of just want to soften some of this form, thin it out, just to have it not quite as hard as we have had it up to this point. And depending on how hard I stroke, I can kind of de-inflate, shrink down some of this stuff, which is also very helpful. So those are pretty low poly. Let's do the same thing that we did to our cloak here. Some major buildup of form, and then soften it from there. And of course, you know, with this singular view, I'm going to have to try to interpret the other sides of this. That's not a problem, though. We can have some fun with it. Kind of look at how it's interacting with the rest of our clothing here, and then build it up from there. Oops. Meant that to be a negative. So again, kind of these big stroke changes that I'm making, just to add in form quickly, and then I can take it down, smooth it out, pinch some stuff to get the form to go the direction I want it to. Use the alternative smooth function. Helps normalize some polys, so get a little bit of some cleaner shapes in here, while retaining a little bit of that form. So you can see how we can start to build up some of these shadows, get some of those secondary forms in. Starts to look a lot better, not quite as stiff. I'm trying to keep this relatively round, not too much deformation, just so when I go to add in some of this stuff, a little bit easier to apply. That little spot there is just our material getting screwed up from sculpting. It's a quick fix. Do the same thing down here though. So I'm actually going to try to get these to interact a little bit better. See where that's connecting to the body. Can hide that. this is, you know, not exactly in the position where we want it either. Want that more flying over the sleeve. So lots of little changes here and there added up are gonna really take this to the next level, and that's the whole point of what we're doing this stream. Lots of little changes to get this closer to our concept and our pose. Dean says, how do you get that most used pop-up palette you pull up? So this is what you're talking about, I believe, my most used menu. This is my my Follygon menu that I've made for myself. You can create a custom menu in your preferences. I'm not sure, you can search on my YouTube channel. I think I've made a tutorial on this before. It's hard to remember, you know, what all I have or haven't made a tutorial of. But if that's something that you guys are interested in, I could maybe make a quick tutorial on that. And then I just have it set up on a hotkey so I can kind of pull that up wherever I want while I'm sculpting. Just set it to, you can set any menu to a hotkey and then pull it up. I could set a hotkey for the, let's say, ZScript menu. So now whenever I press that hotkey, it'll pull up the ZScript menu wherever I want. So I've taken time to make this menu, fill it up with stuff that I use the most, just so it's easier to access. Try to get some screen real estate here for a second while I work on this. Zoom in so far and I lose half my screen. So I'm pretty much doing the same process for each of these different areas. I'm kind of just adding in a fold in this area at the back side just because I can't see what's going on, but I'm just kind of thinking about how this interacts with the arm and what's going on inside of this sleeve. Even though I don't have much in there, I do have the arm, but I'm not taking time to like really pose that and define that. It's not seen, so I don't care. What I do care about though is how that sleeve would interact with that arm. After this quick save's done, we can look. So our arm is a little bit in there up to a point, but I just need to think about, you know, how this sleeve would be interacting with that. So that's what I'm trying to get with this change down here as I pull this in. And really soften that up too. These sleeves are pretty low poly too, and I actually want to dynamesh them and remesh them because the geometry has changed so much from what it originally was. That's originally where the edge was, and you can see that crease. So I just need to really redistribute my polygons in a nicer way right now. I'm gonna take some time to do that. It's just easier to sculpt. I mean, having the correct geometry for the job is absolutely, you know, always necessary. Let's try a simple 1K. Should be plenty at with this shape, I'm thinking. And I might not even need to project this, in all honesty. Whoops. But we will, just in case there's a couple hard creases in here that I might want to keep. And those new redistributed polys really help me just be able to control this form so much more. Simple stuff like that, that rotation there, all that. I'm just doing some light pinching to exaggerate some of these areas. Might build this shape up a little bit stronger through here. I don't want that to be super strong though. It is casting a pretty strong shadow there though. We shall play with it more. And I'll soften some of those as we go here too. My damn standard brush might be a little bit better for this. As I play with that, it's more just kind of straight down. Vlad says, does ZBrush have something like the eyedropper tool, similar to what's in Photoshop? Yes, yes it does. By default, the C key, if you just hold the C key, you can sample any color in ZBrush, including stuff in your user interface. So if I wanted to sample white, it would select white. If I press the C key over the green, grabs the green, different green, white, red, purple. Just the C key. And that is C as in Charlie or car. So really like just kind of pushing in this form really strong here and pinching that as hard as I can. Kind of forcing my surface to turn and forcing it to start catching that shadow. Depending on, of course, you know, where I have my light, it becomes more or less obvious. I don't like to move my light around too much while sculpting. I prefer to rotate, and that moves the light in turn. The light will, you know, always stay in the same place, but if you rotate your geometry, you can see some more stuff, what's going on. So, somewhat rotates your light. Rotate the way you're shining the light on your model. Or of course, you know, just manually actually rotate it. So our angle of our arm isn't going the correct way. It's not a problem, that's an easy fix. I want to get this interaction in a better place though. How are we looking down here with this guy? Is this, that is separate. Now that I've actually rotated the body and done some other stuff, like our legs are a little bit out of alignment, so we can look at rotating those while we are rotating our hand as well. Thank you, says Vlad, absolutely. No worries. Just had a little bit of a cold chill there, which is weird considering it's like 80 degrees outside. It's actually probably more. It's been super hot lately. 87. Blah. 1 second here. So I'm just switching back to my personal material, my Follygon matte black and white. I also have the clay version of that. I prefer using the black and white, but if I'm staring at my model too long and I want to just kind of get a little bit of a different perspective. Adding some color or switching to my clay colored version can be a little bit helpful. Also, when I'm doing sketches and little quick dynamesh sketches of like creatures or anything like that, I sometimes like to use the clay material, clay colored version as well. But really it just comes down to preference. I like this material. I've spent like 2 years playing around with different materials and finally made this after lots of tweaks. This is my favorite material. I do like the basic material a lot though too. I want to hide these are in the way. So getting that angle correct, and then also getting this correct. Run a quick auto groups just so I can mask off this now. Alright, and get out of my way. Go away. Lots of back and forth, but it's necessary. Is necessary. Those shapes look so awkward now that I don't have live boolean on. Honestly, I think the hand could maybe even go a little higher. Actually, I think it's in a good spot. I think what's playing tricks on me is the length of his fingers and how much hand you can see behind that. His little twig wand. I think that's more what's playing with my head. I think we're in a good place positionally though for now. We might change that later though. I am going to just do some selection stuff here. So give me that. And polygroup that. Rotate that more towards where the body would be, and then also kind of rotate this, figure out where this needs to be a little bit better, find that angle, kind of just eyeballing it. I could line it up, but a lot of stuff is misaligned here, so that might kind of mess with us a little bit more too. A little bit more than we want. And I know that the shapes are not exact there, so that might screw us up. In the concept, the pants, they're like meeting and way before where his crotch, I guess, would be, but I don't know if we're going to be able to do that exactly at the current scale that the pants are. I could inflate those quite a bit more, which I'm fine with. I think that might actually help that look closer to the concept as well. I'm more so just kind of looking at angles at this moment. I actually think this is fairly close to what we want. But to my eyes, this is kind of going back away from the camera. If you look at the top of this boot, the cylinder, so you know we'd be able to see down into it, which kind of depends on the angle that we're looking at here. But also, just kind of playing with that some more, so kind of getting that angle a little bit more on point. I think in terms of placement, now I've moved my light and kind of screwed some other stuff up. I think that that looks better. So what I would like to do next is look at possibly inflating these. And just using deformation inflate, see what happens. We don't have to inflate them a lot either. Could try softening some of this form. There's a relax slider up here. Depending on how strongly you do that, you can get different results. Maybe a little bit less. Let's try around 25. 10-ish. I think when I transfer that back, that'll look good. But just to make sure, let's do that last. Or you know what, let's do it out of T-pose, so we're not, you know, we don't have to undo all the changes we made. Actually, I think that's fine. Just kind of add some asymmetry, move that around a little bit. Up here, something happened there. Not sure. It says it's relaxing. I didn't actually move the slider though. Oh, so we'll let that do its thing. Not sure what happened. Very strange, ZBrush. I'm sure I just nudged it a little bit. I don't even think that did anything. I will undo that. So just coming here, clicking on relax. Wow, what the hell? Not sure what is going on. ZBrush is being very strange. On these sliders, you can click on them and then add in your value manually, but for some reason, I probably just need to restart ZBrush. It's freaking out on me. So I'm just trying a really slight relax of about 15 here. And I will hide this shelf as soon as I can. It really does not want to cooperate right now. I'm not sure why it's doing that. We can try a relax at a higher value since we're on a higher subdivision level. I just want to decrease or soften these hard edges that we have in here. It doesn't seem like it's doing what I want. I'm not even going to worry about it. I might try to manually just go through and add some very light smoothing here. I have painted in the these areas to give it a little bit. There's really not much crease going on in our concept. I just tried to manually paint those areas. What I would like to do here and it might just be that we need some additional asymmetry in here, as the form is fairly loose, fairly basic. It's very primary. Don't have a lot of extra stuff in here. So I think bringing that in around our legs. I'll show you how we're going to do that just with a quick softened mask. I think we can get these pants looking a lot better. So that's a little bit too large of a mask, so bring that in some. Bring that in on that side as well. And then I just want to kind of come through here, add some secondary forms in some areas. And I'm going to use probably my move brush to add some more asymmetry here and there. But after adding this in and softening some of this up, I think we'll be in a lot better place for sure. And we've probably added in too much form. So just even knocking some of this back even further. I'm gonna undo that. I'm not a fan. And I think I'm just gonna manually try to push and pull some things around. I might even add some additional. I don't know. I don't know what I want to do about these little stripes. Maybe geo, maybe not. We can try it out, see what it looks like. Doesn't hurt to try. Got to be careful when adding this additional volume, as I want it to, you know, kind of flow into that. I don't want it to look really kind of just stuck on there. And we can see that even at this stage, could stand to widen out some of this. We're a lot better in terms of the angles we got going on, though. Much happier about these this position for this leg. All right. So I've been working on that hand. I've been jumping back and forth a lot, looking at the pants, then back to the hand, at the hat, back to the hand. Just because the hands, they're not fun to work on. So I'm trying to do as much as I can in between working on those. And just because I sculpt so much slower when I'm streaming, it's going to be maybe a little bit easier if I even do those off of stream. But I can show you guys some more stuff with them as we go. And if you guys got any specific questions, as always, chuck them up in the chat. Starting to screw up this angle a little bit. Starting to pull the wrong way here. Also, when you're sculpting on your model when it's really zoomed in, having perspective on can really mess with you with your camera rotations. And it's kind of a thing by feel. Hard to tell just by looking. But I'm sure if you guys have sculpted in ZBrush on something really close up, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Little things like this curve here coming down starts to get a little messy. So I just want to make sure that I can clean that up. It's the little things that add up and make the full character. So you want to make sure you get those little things correct. So I might play with those pants more off of stream and just try to like add in some, ooh, you know what? The scarf has a similar thing going on. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't given much thought into how I'm going to do these little stripes of color through there. I don't know. Can play with it though. We'll figure it out. Since we're adding some secondary forms to some of our cloth, let's also look at our scarf and try to do that. Katie, what's going on? Welcome to the stream. Katie is, let's see, where'd she go? ZBrush Saturday. What do we got? Childhood memory, that's right. If you guys are not hanging out on the ZBrush Discord, definitely go do it. You can join that by going to the About page on my YouTube channel here. And we got a new challenge coming up. It's going to be pretty fun. Alright. Scarf time. Secondary form scarf time. Start to pull that a little bit. And by secondary form I mean a little bit more primary adjustments. Just so I can see that angle. I'm just adding some subdivisions in here. What are we at? 800K. That's fine. I'll do the same thing down here. And I plan on just doing the same basic thing that we were doing to our sleeves. This is going to require a little bit more control though. And just a little bit more of me being careful. I'm going to try to keep this a little bit messy in the beginning though. And yeah, we'll figure it out. I'm gonna hide just pretty much everything here, except for our scarf and probably head. Just got too much going on, and it's hard for me to work. Look at that arm. Look how awkward that is. Let's see. Pantsu. I might keep some of that stuff on. Alright. Alright, alright. Katie says, working on her character head at the moment, hoping you're well. Of course, absolutely. I believe I did see one of your character heads that you posted. I'm not sure if that's the same one that you're working on now, but I hope that's going well for you. I don't know if you're creating a specific character or if you're just kind of practicing. Or maybe it's for the childhood memories. That's also very likely. So remember, I'm trying to be really kind of strong with some of my strokes here, more than a little bit dirty. All that's well and good, as we don't really care how dirty we are here in the beginning. Honestly, I prefer being a little bit strong with my my strokes, and then I'll come back through and knock some of that form down. For the most part though, we're in a good direction right now. Trying to pull that up and get that a little bit closer to what we're seeing here. It's up pretty high. And then you can see how messy that gets. And remember, I still wanted to make some changes to the face a little bit. I was thinking of moving out some of this front part of the face, so that might affect how our scarf here interacts with some of this. So I am a little bit worried about going too far here without kind of just checking some of this. So I don't have symmetry anymore on our head. That's not a problem though. I think we can do a decent job of kind of moving this forward. I already broke symmetry on this and made some small changes, but I can kind of line this up. Remember, turning off perspective. And let's see how that selection does with this form change. Let's probably mask out a little bit more of the cheeks. Try that again. Kind of just adding a little bit more volume there to the front of the face and mouth area. Actually, kind of looking at this, kind of feel like more of just the top portion here. And if I can, bring that a little bit higher, like so. Back there. Back to our side view here. Trying to move that ever so slightly. And just trying to get some more volume up through these different areas. Kind of messes up our star, not a big deal. Kind of like the additional form that we're seeing in there. If I can carry that a little bit more to the sides here, I think I'd be a lot more happy with it. What do you guys think? What are you guys feeling? What's our head need? Undo some of that. Just kind of flipping our canvas. So this is why I was kind of thinking about adding some squash. The scale is a little bit off here. Squashing some of this might help a little bit. I think we got some of that roundness correct. Might just be some slight proportional tweaks that'll get us in a better area there. I think bringing out some of this area though has helped us quite a bit. This isn't our most up-to-date head, so not really a good representation. We can grab this guy real quick. Flipping that canvas is always helpful, you know. Looking for that print screen button, and of course, I get the quick save right over top of my model. We will give that a minute. Alright. Flip on over here. Give me that. Give me that froze. And you know, my angles aren't lined up very well here for our char. More so, I was just trying to get the scale there correct. Hide some of that. Alright, that's a pretty good place. So one thing I think we can do, can maybe flip this to look at it a little bit differently. I don't want to add the extreme asymmetry that is visible here, with this eye kind of rotating out this way a little bit more, and then this other eye rotating back a bit more. So I don't want to add that extreme asymmetry. So you know, we're not going to be able to capture that exact derpiness, but I think we can get very, very close. I still think possibly squishing in some of this area, or just, I think it might be a little bit of our scarf if we can move that, get some of that stuff to line up. I think that'll help us a lot more. So let's look at doing some of that, and and possibly tweaking some stuff on our head, more in our cheek region of our froge. So let's grab that scarf and start pushing some stuff around. Now that I've kind of pulled out that face a little bit. I might also like to change the angle of that poly paint that I have on there, this white portion, just to get a little bit more roundness in there, a little bit closer to what we're seeing in our concept. I am. What's up? What's up? Chipotle? Not right this moment, but thank you. I'm on the interwebs, doing the stream, same as you guys actually. My roommate and our mutual friend are working on a project in the basement right now. They've been. My roommate Austin, who has been on stream before, he's been working on a game for like the past 2 years now, so he's been working on that extensively. And he has somebody helping him now, working on it as well. So they're working on that today. They plan on, it's a game called Match Point. They plan on releasing that this year, some point, I think in the next month or so. I believe they have a Steam page that you can look up. Match Point. Definitely go check it out. It's a pretty sweet game. It's very simple if you're into like the way you could describe it is Pong with gravity, and a few different fun mechanics thrown in. Yeah, definitely go check it out. It's really sweet. I may have helped with some of the main mechanics. I'm using my clay tubes brush right now, trying to get some of these forms in there. And I will kind of start to smooth some of this back, just like we were doing with our cloth. Try not to bleed over my edge here. With your certain brushes, you can start to get some really weird effects over edges. Just want to try to be careful of what I'm doing here. Even though we're trying to be messy, you know, I still don't want to completely screw up everything that I've built up. And I'm also not incredibly worried about the scarf having the exact perfect curve that we're seeing here. It's not the end of the world for me. Stuff is looking good though. You know, this might not individually look good. Kinda roughed it up a bit, but stuff is looking a lot better. Whenever I'm done, you know, working on a particular session towards these final stages, it's kind of hard to see all the changes that you've made. Definitely save some version control, save some work in progress images as you go. And roll back and, you know, look at some of the changes that you've made, and then maybe, in my opinion, it makes it easier to see kind of where you need to go from there and future changes as you keep working. So I'm going to get a little bit of a, whoa, wrong brush, a little bit of a stronger pinch around here and just in a few different areas, and then kind of soften some of that form in those other areas. So as it kind of flows this way, try to soften it a bit more. And up around there. And we can't really see the back side of our scarf, so I was just kind of playing around adding some little form in there. Can't see much of that, so from here let's just clean up some of this. Oh, actually, excuse me. Escape. And nah, that's fine. I was gonna merge those two areas together. They are not visible though underneath our other scarf, so not a big deal. Ooh, lost our poly paint. This also helps in really just breaking up your form by being really messy at first and then knocking a lot of it back. It's just going to help get rid of that really simplistic form that we had in the beginning. I also like to mask stuff off and really be able to tweak my surface. Get some nice overhangs. Try to make that play a little bit nicer there. try to do that a couple more times here. Just kind of pull that out. A little bit too much. In this form, I was really just trying to get kind of a harsh shadow there. It didn't really give me the effect that I wanted, so I think I'm going to knock a lot of that back. And that's what's really great about working with Dynamesh, and just kind of jumping back and forth between that and subdivs when you need to. You can kind of really tweak your form to however you want, which is pretty much just how I work all the time. And that's a little bit of a mess. Not the exact shape that we can see in our concept, but I still think it's interesting. I might get that a little bit more accurate. Like I said, I don't care if this is perfectly accurate to our concept. I do want it to be as close as we can make it, though. I live in Dynamesh. I only use subdivisions for clothes. Yeah, I just swap back and forth on a need-to basis, but Dynamesh is my BFF. I'm not a huge fan of the Sculptress Pro mode, if you guys are familiar with the new mode that was added to ZBrush here recently. I think it's good for sketches and stuff, but just doesn't fit into my pipeline. I'm sure there are people that use it a lot, though. I don't know who those people are. Definitely not me. Starting to get that to play a little bit nicer. Katie says, I like using Tessellate with Dynamesh to add in smaller details, but I never use Sculptress Pro. Yeah, so Sculptress Pro automatically does that tessimation, as they call it, tessimate and decimation for you while you go. So very similar, you know, to Sculptress, if you guys are familiar with Sculptress. But yeah, that Tessimate tool, I can see how you could definitely use that with Dynamesh at the same time. Get some high resolution details in specific areas. The decimation, though, you might not want to be happening. You start to lose some resolution in other areas. So I could, that's kind of my main biff with it, you know. But you do have control over that. You can turn that on or off on a depending on what you need. Alright, so some secondary forms, right? Still a little bit too built up. I would like it to be a little bit more flat there, as we can see in our concept. You can see we have some pretty strong convex surfaces going on. Not a problem for us to knock some of that down. Just kind of lightly coming through here with my trim dynamic. A couple quick strokes. And I think we can get this in a good place. hard to drink from my hydro flask with my Cintiq in front of me. Don't want to smash it on the screen.
I'm seeing a weird shadow that I don't want to see. And I'm sure it's over here too. I'm sure it happened when I was pulling out the face a little bit. I kind of want to just pull that in, that lower part of the head, ever so slightly. And I might need to do that more. I'm really not sure. I just really need to kind of flip my canvas and really spend some time planning out those very subtle changes that I need to make. Another thing that I can do is rotate my model in ZBrush. There's not really an easy way to do that, and not rotate my model, but mirror my model. I'd have to do that for every single subtool. You could go into Transpose Master and do it that way, but if you try to rotate a model or mirror a model in Transpose Master, the geometry actually gets really screwed up when you come out of it. So it doesn't really work that way. You kind of have to manually rotate each piece. It's just kind of a pain, and it can really help you. Give you those fresh eyes that you sometimes need. Let's see. Bendy says, next character fusion, can it be Bendy and Spyro? Well, Bendy, I don't know what you look like. Plus, I've already done a Spyro fusion. I can't do another Spyro fusion. Not so close coming off the last one. Oh man, this is lagging all over the place. I'm just trying to... Whoa, I just whistled really loud, really high-pitched, like an old man. I'm very, very gently trying to kind of smooth that transition so it's not quite as tight. Still a little too much. Let's see here. Turn our poly paint back on. And poly paint and material, I should say. I want to bring this line out a little bit more. Lazy mouse plus standard brush MRGB. It's actually fine from that start point. I'm just gonna round it out a little bit more. Same over here. Trying to be a little bit careful. Actually, nobody can see the bottom of the head, so I'm not actually worried about that not lining up. Just try to get that angle a little bit closer to what I'm seeing over there. I think that's quite a bit closer. Over there, over here, I don't know, it kind of like terminates on the edge of the face. I'd kind of have to make that go back a little bit further. I'll leave it for now though. Let's look at this bottom scurf. Bottom scurf, please. He's hidden partially. I got some weird stuff going on with my geometry. You can see that when I rotate. That will take care of itself once I Dynamesh. Essentially, to get this to have a really hard point up here for the corners, I had to do some weird stuff with my geometry, with beveling, and that's just kind of the result. It's not a big deal though. So secondary forms, looking at our lower portion of our scarf here. Turning some of this stuff on might help us out. So first, just trying to make sure that my angles are lining up, things are working, and then get into those folds. I hate not being able to do proper sculpting sessions because of the heat. Yeah, my room gets stupid hot. Got this big computer in here, and if I don't leave that door open, I start to cook. I have to go take breaks. Like, as soon as I'm done streaming, I pretty much just like sprint out of my room and just like hop in my freezer. It's not true, but it should be. Print screened and uploaded to critiques using my normal matte cap because it vexes people for some reason. I'm not sure if you mean your normal matte cap, like other people dislike your normal matte cap. That's kind of what it sounds like you're saying. I don't like sculpting with like if you look at basic material, with matte caps you can't rotate your light, but with basic materials, or standard materials, I'm calling them basic, this is the basic material. With standard materials, you can rotate your light. I believe that's correct. I believe the reflections for these are baked in, and no matter where you can't move your light source on these. That's why I like to use these down here for the most part. Let's see, where is it? And there's basic material 2, so you can like rotate your light. You can do that with my sculpting material that I use as well. I know a lot of people like matte caps though, and you can get a little bit more of a specific material with matte caps. You can like copy like specific materials that you might find in real life a little bit better. Stuff with I think you can do a lot with the standard materials though as well, especially if you're using like the tri shader or quad shader. That's what I've done to create a couple realistic skin materials that I have that work pretty well. I'm pretty happy with those materials. maybe I'll do a tutorial on that in the future. I learned that from somebody else though, and I would honestly prefer to just recommend the original source of info for something like that, since it's something that I learned elsewhere. Bendy says, how do you get the time to do this? You don't get time, you gotta make time. And sculpting is my passion. What is going on with this angle here? I'm noticing more things that are catching shadows very oddly, and I'm not liking it. Yeah, man, you gotta make time. If you wait around and try to wait for the opportunity to present itself, it never will. But you know, when I started sculpting, I just kind of did it as often as I could. I did a little bit of a daily challenge that really helped me. And I was thinking about making a little bit of something that would go along with that, a little bit of a course. But I'm not sure. I've mentioned in the past few streams that I've had some ideas for some new tutorials that I could make, and I thought that might be something fun to do. Because I know a lot of people struggle in the early stages trying to figure out what they should be sculpting and what they should kind of be trying to do. I mean, you really got to figure out what your goals are, though. I mean, there's so many different possibilities. If you want to be a ZBrush artist, a digital sculptor only, it's a very competitive, very niche market. So the earlier you can figure out exactly what you want to do, the better off you're going to be. I wouldn't, personally, I'm not a fan of, you know, the idea of a generalist, and I don't think you'll always be a generalist if you consider yourself a generalist now. But the more specific you can be, I think the better. I'm gonna trying to get this surface to turn. Last Night says, how do you know what to focus on? Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just talking about. I think it would be fun to do some kind of course on that. It really just kind of depends on so much, man. It really does. What do you want to do? What do you want to be? What do you want to do with your life? That's a loaded question. Big one. I was also thinking about doing some anatomy stuff. I think that would be something that people are always seeking, always interested in. And I would like to give my perspective on that. In a little bit more of a longer format style of content. Really hard to sculpt on something like this, I'm not gonna lie. This angle. Really, I'm just trying to add some slight variation to the surface. You can see that there's really not much going on. I'm gonna smooth pretty much all this out. I just want a little bit of variation. A little bit of secondary forms here that when smoothed out, we're just going to add a little extra to the surface. It's a little much, I think. I think we're in a pretty good place here. Learn through gradual integration. Character I'm doing at the moment, I used ZModeler for the first time. There you go. I use ZModeler all the time. That's how I created the original geometry, the low poly, for this scarf here that we're working on. You know, I feel like the same could be said for anatomy. You know, as stuff comes up, you know, go crazy, figure out what you need to. But it's also good to have a decent base of knowledge to work off of. I like everything except for rigging, says the last night. So I don't know, man. If you want to get more into animation, do that. If you want to get more into prop modeling or environment modeling, lighting, you got to pick something. You have to pick, or somebody else will for you one day. And I'd prefer to dig my own grave and decide myself, even if I don't like it, and one day find myself unhappy. At least I got to choose. I don't want somebody else to choose for me. And I think that is that will absolutely happen if you don't decide yourself. All right, let's clean up our form here. Let's see. Being a technical artist is very specialist. Simple posing is enough for a portfolio. Well, a technical artist could be defined differently by different companies. Technical artist could be, you know, programming art tools for other artists to use, if anything. Let's close holes here. And I guess we'll just Dynamesh at about, whoa, not that high, 500. See how that's kind of flowing in there a little bit. Now remember, I'm going to be knocking out a lot of those extra little shapes that we've built up through there. Smoothing this out, it's also going to help me thin out some of these areas too, which is what I was doing on our sleeves if you were around for that earlier in our stream here today. So similar stuff, upside down. Those merged together, that's okay. I just didn't want to Dynamesh those together immediately. I wanted to see how these were kind of interacting together. I think I'm actually, let's look here. I'm actually fine with Dynameshing those. I wasn't sure if I was or not, so I wanted to hold off a little bit. Really, I didn't get the surface turn at all that I was looking for when I built this up. I'll try a little bit harder. Transpose master. I couldn't tell if that was a broken heart or a solid heart. Yeah, I love transpose master as well. Although I wish we just had some better control over our subtools in general and didn't have to rely on kind of going into transpose master. It'd be nice if we could just, you know, straight up edit multiple subtools at once. One day we will, I think, be able to do that.
we kind of already can. It just sucks and it crashes ZBrush all the time, and I'm not going to show you guys how to do it because I don't want to crash ZBrush. Like I mentioned, it's not even worth doing. It's for very minor changes. It involves using the dreaded 3D gizmo, which you guys know I don't use very often. I only use that when grabbing the what are they called? The deformation transforms in here. So as I mentioned, most of the form here, it'd get knocked down, but I get up again. Never gonna keep me down. So I'm just really trying to break up my surface. And I honestly think that's good. And we will come through there after remeshing. So I'm going to try to just Z-remesh that at about 5K and see what we get, and decide from there if I need to do any projection or anything like that. ZBrush needs a better manual retopo toolset. I 100% agree. The current setup with using Z-spheres is disturbing at best. I hate it. It's not intuitive. A lot of things aren't intuitive in ZBrush though. It just sucks. It just sucks. They might do something similar to what's it called? The polygroup it thing, where they add in like a separate extension. I'm not really sure though. I don't know how high on the priority list that is for them. I do not have the inside scoop. What is the difference between divided and dynameshed? Katie said subdivide takes the mesh and adds in poly loops with each level. And dynamesh reprojects the polygons based on resolution. Yes, that is correct. So when you subdivide, it's exactly what it sounds like. If you were to divide something, you would, cut it in half. When you subdivide, if you have a square, one polygon that has 4 sides, if you were to subdivide, you would cut that into 4 polygons. So when you subdivide once, it actually multiplies your poly count by 4. So if I have 654 points here, you know, what would that be? Roughly 2.4 million if I subdivide once. So, you know, a little bit over that. So I just subdivided that. So subdivide multiplied by 4. It increases your polygon density. And then Dynamesh, you know, of course, like Katie just said, just takes your current geometry, recalculates it, and throws some new topology on there for you to work with. So I know we're doing a lot of work here on the scarf, but you know, I'm just taking my time, trying to build up the form to a nice place. I don't want to rush this at all. The last night says, I see you don't have perspective on. That's right, I just forgot to turn it back on. It's fine. I turned it off to move the face out while I was working on that. And also while I'm sculpting on something close up, I don't like to have perspective on. It makes rotating around your object more difficult. But I turn it on and off. It's not like I just always have it off or always have it on. And I don't think you should always have it one way. It also depends what you're sculpting, what you're doing. So as we start to add in those more forms, things will start to come to a more finished place. Still really dirty though, really dirty around our scarf region, and I would like to play with tugging this up a little bit more. But we're getting there. Like I said, I don't want to rush this stuff. Silver says, hey, looks awesome. What's the longest you've ever taken on a project like this? Oh gosh. Like this? I have no idea, but I've spent like an entire month working on one thing before in production environment. I mean, it really just depends. I don't know. Do you remember Mr. Oizo? O-I-Z-O. I do not remember Mr. Oizo. I didn't know. Who is Mr. Oizo? Posted a video in the off-topic channel on the Discord. I will definitely check it out. It might spark my memory, or maybe I've never heard of this person. This thing is like very off-center here. I also need to scale and move these up. Probably do that in Transpose Master. Let's hide this. I haven't done much with the interaction here, just because I was waiting on doing some more stuff with the scarf. This one's like twisted like crazy over here. And this is kind of the problem with translating 2D into 3D. A lot of this stuff isn't taken into consideration, so some of this can be really screwy. I don't know though, we can see what we can do. See, even now, like much like the concept of my sleeve is starting to blend into the scarf there. Huh.
So that's what I've been kind of trying to avoid this. It's just kind of screwy. And like I said, I don't think that was really taken into consideration. I can kind of try to work around that, but it's really getting in there. Pretty strong. And this was one of the areas that I mentioned was not going to work in 3D. And I could Dynamesh that out. I could Boolean subtract that. I might be able to just get enough curve here. The problem is it starts to look like it's getting really tight in there, and that's really not what I want to go for. I want to try to avoid that. And I don't want that arm bend to really be seen. As I've done this, I kind of need to pull that sleeve up even more so. So many things kind of playing together and interacting here. Let me try to do this a really simple way so I don't lose that shape. I could also just, yeah, I don't know what I want to do with that area. That's one of the areas that I knew was going to give a lot of trouble, and I'm thinking a lot of different things right now. I could pinch in that side of the scarf. It's just not going to work the way that at least I can visually understand what's happening there. It shouldn't work. I don't know, maybe we can move up the scarf, maybe we can... that back area. Let's see. Maybe something like this. And then I can kind of get that to get a little bit tighter in there. I might just have to mess with this off a stream for a while. Find something that really works. Getting all these pieces to play nice together is not a simple thing. I think he's looking good though. I think he's getting there. We could stop now if we wanted, but we won't. We'll continue. We'll continue pushing. Pushing ourselves, pushing this character. Hopefully you guys are getting some good info out of these most recent streams. I'd like to stream more after I'm done with this guy. Maybe we can figure out what character to do next, or what kind of project to do next. Maybe some anatomy stuff. I don't know. We shall see, said the blind man. It's getting there. I'm liking that more. I think that worked pretty well. I think that was a good idea. Pretty ugly. A little bit closer to what I'm looking for. Just using my trim dynamic brush there. think wondering if I need to put some more twist on the body this way. Twist it clockwise from this angle. I don't know. Let's see. How often do you have personal time, and what is more difficult, organic or hard surface? I make personal time. Somebody was asking about that before, but yeah. I make personal time. It's Sunday, 7 o'clock at night here. And, you know, I could be doing anything right now, but hang out on stream with you guys, work on our frog, hear a little bit more, which is always fun. I love sculpting, so typically with my free time I'm doing something like this. I don't really have any cool shows I'm watching right now. I did recently start a show on Netflix called Penny Dreadful, which is alright so far, you know, giving it a shot. But yeah, man, whenever I can. And what is more difficult, hard surface or organic? It just kind of depends on what the form is that you're trying to create. You know, if you're trying to organically sculpt a finger, it's a lot easier than hard surface sculpting an entire mech. I think everybody's different though, and everybody feels more comfortable doing different things. I don't know, man. I think it's just really dependent on the project. I don't think one is more difficult than another. It's kind of on a per case basis, per person basis. A lot of factors. I like doing hard surface stuff though, and I really enjoy doing organic stuff. Pretty much all organic shapes here. Very small, hard surface details, little things. It's just primitives. But if I do hard surface, I use the Z modeler brush here in ZBrush. I wanted to move those, so I'm gonna do that real quick before I forget. Slide these up a little bit closer. I think in terms of, you know, actually just sculpting, organic is obviously harder. In 3D, if you're doing hard surface, you're probably using some kind of polymodeling tool or combination of like slicing or something similar. Sculpting, though, sculpting's not easy. It's a lot of time, a lot of hours to get to a good place. That is not right. There we go. Wrong move. Wrong piece, I should say. It's a little bit tucked up under there. And they're a little bit farther apart. I don't have enough polygons in this to move it the way I want. It's okay.
Definitely closer to where we want them. Are we happy with that though? Ooh, definitely not. I'm just going to kind of raise my cloth up here to meet this a little bit, and I might adjust those some more too. Just a little bit easier to tweak this. All right. Well, we have done a ton of stuff to our little dude here. And we still have a lot more to do. But I think that's going to be a good place to stop for tonight. So thanks for coming and hanging out on the stream, guys. Appreciate you. And once this is done, I think I'm gonna bounce on out of here. As always, you know, check down in the description if you're interested in my newest ZBrush course, or if you're interested in some critique / mentorship. Definitely go check out Danny Cruz, the creator of this amazing concept. And with that, guys, our weekend is over. So hopefully you guys have a good Monday. And with that shared and all that done, I will hopefully see you guys in the next stream. I'll